British logistics in the Falklands War. The 1982 British military campaign to recapture the Falkland Islands depended on complex logistical arrangements. The logistical difficulties of operating 7,000 nautical miles from home were formidable. The Argentine invasion of the Falkland Islands came at a time when the Royal Navy's amphibious capability was being run down. But it still possessed the aircraft carriers HMS Hermes and Invincible, the landing platform dock ships HMS Fearless and Intrepid, and 6 landing ship logistics ships. To provide the necessary logistic support, the Royal Navy's ships were augmented by ships taken up from trade. The British Army and Royal Navy developed a base at Ascension Island, a British territory in the mid-Atlantic 3,700 nautical miles from the UK and 3,300 nautical miles 3,800 miles. 6,100 kilometers from the Falkland Islands. Although it had an airfield with an excellent runway, there was only a small hardstand area for parking aircraft and no parallel taxiways. There was an anchorage, but no port facilities, just a lone jetty. Ascension was used as a convenient place for the amphibious ships to restow their equipment, and as a base for Hercules transport aircraft, which were modified by the addition of auxiliary fuel tanks and aerial refueling probes. With the support of Victor tankers, these modifications allowed the transports to deliver priority supplies to the South Atlantic. The 3rd Commando Brigade landed at Ajax Bay, Port San Carlos and San Carlos on East Falkland, but struggled to build up its supplies as the Argentine Air Forces made repeated attacks on ships in Falkland Sound. SS Atlantic Conveyor was struck by 2 Exocet AM-39 missiles, and sank with 3 Chinook and 6 Wessex helicopters still on board, along with their tools and spare parts, and other vital stores including tent accommodation. The loss of the helicopters on Atlantic Conveyor was a serious blow. It forced the 3rd Commando Brigade to make a loaded march across East Falkland. The brigade maintenance area was struck by an Argentine air attack on the 27th of May that destroyed hundreds of rounds of mortar and artillery ammunition. Forward brigade maintenance areas were established at Teal Inlet for the 3rd Commando Brigade and Fitzroy for the 5th Infantry Brigade. Some 500 rounds per gun were delivered to gun positions by helicopters to enable the artillery to support the attacks on the mountains ringing Port Stanley. The successful conclusion of these battles resulted in the surrender of the Argentine forces in the Falklands on the 14th of June. Over the mountains 3rd Commando Brigade. Northeast of the total exclusion zone that the British government had declared around the Falkland Islands, the Royal Navy designated a tug repair and logistics area where ships could receive and transfer supplies, and conduct repairs of battle damage under the protection of the Carrier Battle Group. Hercules airdrops were made to ships there. Ships were now held in the Tralla, from whence it took about 20 hours to reach San Carlos. Their captains preferred to navigate Falkland Sound by night, allowing them to be unloaded by day, which suited the Commando Logistic Regiment. Working around the clock was inadvisable, for there were no relief crews for the landing craft or helicopters. Only 4 Sea Kings had night vision equipment, allowing them to operate at night. These were reserved for night operations, to allow the crews to rest, and necessary aircraft maintenance to be performed. They were not employed during the day. 1 Sea King was permanently assigned to support of the Rapier battery. This left 6 Sea King, 5 Wessex and the Chinook helicopter available for logistical and tactical missions. Requested supplies took at least 2 days to fetch from the Tralla. Helberg visited Clapp on Fearless each night and presented a list of required ships. Clapp would then signal Woodward and ask for them. But for operational reasons a requested ship might not arrive, or a substitute might be sent containing none of the required stores. The Ordnance Squadron of the Commando Logistic Regiment had compiled lists of what was on board each ship, but lacked the manpower to maintain teams on all the supply ships. Goods became damaged from improper storage or handling, or were pilfered, and the contents of the ships slowly became less certain. RFA Resource carried stores for both the Royal Navy and the 3rd Commando Brigade, and with no one to assess conflicting priorities, she remained with the fleet.